Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from Earth 616 to the Mojoverse to the TVA in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance Assemble, Volume 219. And guess what, Brent? 2 weeks in a row, we're talking about some Blade drama.
We are. I mean, it's nothing we wouldn't have been able to infer already, but yep, some Blade stuff did come out this week.
Yeah, so as usual, Marvel Alliance, you were saying, has a interesting history of last minute news breaking before we go live. So we'll take it. Content is content.
Yeah, there you go.
So how's been your week?
It's been good. Had yesterday off for the holiday, just prepping for some trips I'm taking over the next few weeks. So it's been good. What about you?
Yeah, Heroes Con was great, so stay tuned for the post credits at that point. Go over all that the festivities with that. Had a nice kind of early anniversary celebration. Our anniversary is not until the end of July, but Aaron and I went to an all-day spa at that point, so that was relaxing and interesting, to say the least.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, good week overall at that point. So, but a big kind of network thing. You said you're getting ready for trips. Brent will not be with us for a little bit. How long are you gonna be gone?
Yeah, I'm basically it's multiple trips, but the way the scheduling falls, 3 weeks in a row, I will be gone, starting next week.
Yeah, so Brent we'll miss him, but a lot of the trips hopefully will be enjoyable.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will. I got 2 weeks of vacation and 1 week of a conference. Debatable, which I'm looking forward to more actually, because I really am looking forward to that conference. But what's going to happen. Like, they're going to announce big Spider-Man 4 news. Daredevil's going to be in it. Punisher's going to I'm going to miss the big news there, but that's okay. You know what? I hope it does happen.
There, you can come back to excitement, and we'll give you your platform and your soapbox to pontificate of how excited you are.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, the next couple of weeks, David is going to be coming in and stepping in for you, and then that final week you're out, Mr. Travis Snell will be coming back on. So I want to thank them early for taking that time to join us and step in for you.
Yes,
but you will be missed, Honey Badger.
Thanks.
All right. Well, let's get this network plugs out of the way. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network with 7 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network on Twitter at GUAPod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers, our dollar tier, our tip jar to say, hey, we think we're doing a good job, and then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including our first show. We can watch this all day, the Marvel Alliance Infinity Saga rewatch. All 24 episodes are up there as we watch them in chronological order, giving you our thoughts. And then we have our current show, Tales from the House of X, where we are watching all our favorite movies from the Fox era of X-Men. We have 3 movies up there right now: Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and The Wolverine, and Logan. When is Logan dropping, Brent?
Gosh, that's got to be soon, right? Is that next week?
That is next. Yep. That is next week. That is next Monday at that point. So, yes, Logan on many people's top 5, top 10, and for some people, they're number one. They're number 1 at that point. So we break that all down for you, and that'll be coming to you all patrons at next Monday. So I hope you enjoy it. We also have the DC Alliance guys doing their DC films through the years. We've got Joe in his Multiverse Minutes, Disney Dives, looking at all the animated classics of Disney. Classics or not classics, his last one, he was not a spoiler, he was not a fan of, but it is rather interesting to hear basically Joe take the hit for all of us at that point. He's doing it for you the patrons. So but we got a lot of back content out there, so we want to thank our patrons. We can't do this without your support. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. Why don't you take 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. looking at all these lovely collected editions from Micronauts, Volume 3, Marvel The End, New Avengers Omnis. Got a lot of epics coming out, so use that code MARVELGOA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. Use it an unlimited amount of times, and I want to thank them for being our official sponsor. All right, so if you're watching either live or on the replay or listening at that point, well, as we said earlier, we're talking about Blade. Last week we talked about how they lost their second director into so many. The Hollywood Reporter came out today with basically a major expose looking at all the behind-the-scenes drama going on and giving some insights from their quote-unquote sources of what has been going on. And it's been one of those necessarily that it's been rather frustrating, I think, for both of us who not only like Mahershala Ali, but also the character itself, just to see the turmoil that's been going on with this.
We're going to end up getting the Blade game before we get the Blade movie.
Hey, that's my fact or fiction. I'm sticking to it.
It's going to happen.
Uh-huh. Sad but true. And yes, a little break with this. Yes, all in the game saying R.I.P. Donald Sutherland, fantastic actor. Fully agree with that. Definitely very sad news at that point. And Fifth Jack saying, excited to hear about Herrickson. Yep, listen for that after the credits. So Hollywood Reporter, we're going to break this down. Some things we knew, some things we're getting a little more light on. So they basically, their sources are telling them star Mahershala Ali is also said to be increasingly frustrated, who has been attached to the project since 2019. He handpicked Demong after the project lost their first director, Bassam Tariq, in September 2022. At the time, Blade was in pre-production and was about 2 months from principal photography, but Marvel came to believe that Tariq was not the best fit for the project, according to sources. Marvel then presented, and this sounds to be recently, presented Ali with a list of directors for consideration, but Ali conducted his own search after having concerns that the list largely featured filmmakers who were untested at the big studio level. So Marvel's had a history, of giving, either first time directors or newer directors projects like this, or up and coming directors that may have had a recent, like, one or two hits at that point to kind of break them into this. This is par for the course for them, but the fact that Ali was not at all happy with this, what do you feel about that?
It's an interesting amount of control that he seems to have over this project, but considering he's the one who brought the project to them, he's the one that said, I want to work with you as this character. I kind of get why he would want to do that. That said, Marvel's track record is pretty good with the up-and-comers, with the newer, or with the maybe the people who have, like, I'm thinking about the Russos. Those have to be the biggest success story, which they had done projects before, both movies and TV, but nothing to the scale of what they did with the Winter Soldier, and then we know what that projected onto.
And also, one could say, tinfoil hat, that the idea that your newer directors, your up-and-comers, they play ball a lot more versus those who are seasoned or want to have more fully control at that point. Yeah.
They do play ball a little bit more. Marvel's probably able to help them a little bit more, which, depending on your point of view, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, and really that kind of just comes down to the project itself.
Yeah. Ali has at times, they go on to say Ali at times has exercised an inordinate amount of influence over the project in a way a few actors have on the Marvel movies. Part of it stems from the Blade Inceptions, which began when Ali called the studio after winning the Oscar for his work on Green Book and said he wanted to do Blade. Ali envisioned Blade as his Black Panther, according to sources. So that right there is one of those, that statement right there can explain a big chunk of why we're getting so many delays. Not just necessarily his control, but his vision for what this is going to be. This is no simple vampire project to him.
Right. If he's looking for something on the level of a Black Panther, he's looking for something that is going to make some sort of statement, some sort of commentary on race, cultural things like that, and um, because of that, like all in the game says Chad Stahelski, who did the John Wick, who did
Mm-hmm.
great with all four John Wick movies, would be a good candidate. I don't disagree in principle, other than I don't know if you are looking to make statements about race or cultural. I kind of feel like you probably don't want a white guy to direct that. So it just kind of depends on how literal he's meaning when Ali says he wants it to be his Black Panther. That said, I love the John Wick movies, so
Mm-hmm.
I know Stahelski has worked in Marvel before. By all means, bring him somewhere and give him the top job on some other project.
And maybe that's the drum they're beating when they didn't like what Tariq was going to be doing. As they said, they didn't think he could handle it well enough. Made me think like, I know Ali kind of was pushing for it at that point, but if they didn't think he could handle it, it's a little late in the game. But like with everything, they got rid of it. And All in the Game also saying Ali's putting a lot of pressure on himself. Well, I mean, yes, but if he's that personally invested into it, he wants to do right. He's never struck me as an actor to just do a project just because of a paycheck. I mean, it's one of those that I can't argue with what he thinks this project should be. They go on to say Demong's Blade was batting its wings toward a shooting date of May 2023 and hired yet another writer, True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto, also an Ali pick, to bring the script over to the finish line. But it was all for naught when the writer's strike and then the actor's strike shut the movie down. Quote, people have missed about 3 windows to shoot other movies or shows, an agent notes. But unlike several other Marvel projects, which were shut down and then restarted, including Deadpool and Wolverine and the Thunderbolts, Blade instead let most of its actors go. This was news. Delroy Lindo and Aaron Pierre among them, and went through more writers. Marvel hired Michael Green in November, and right after Demong left, go-to Marvel writer Eric Pearson, who had pleased the studio with recent work on Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four, jumped in. So now we've lost 2 major actors for this project that we didn't know were no longer part of the project anymore. And, it goes into more of the writers. I mean that's going to happen either. I say they let them go. Maybe they couldn't wait around any longer. They wanted to do other projects and just couldn't commit to the time as it was kept on shifting and shifting and shifting. This has always been the problem as a result of the strikes.
There's only so long that Marvel can keep an actor from working on other projects. Say we have first rights in your time. You have to keep your schedule clear. There's only so long they can do that. And if they're not going to make the movie eventually, they just got to let them go. Or if the movie keeps, starting over, they got to let them go. And that's what keeps happening with this movie.
Yeah, they bring out the point of Wesley Snipes chiming in, playing a little troll action, saying "Blade, lordy, lordy." I think the thing talked about like how snowmobiles, how many snowmobiles or whatever doing. Again, he's just making fun of it because he's not involved. Ali's attorney, Shelby Weiser, told THR in a recent interview that deal was in 2019 and they still haven't shot it. Which is pretty much the craziest thing in my professional experience. And I would agree that that's been one of those where it's saying, really, what is going on? On top of last year's strikes, Blade was a victim of the pandemic delays and Disney's full steam ahead pivot to streaming, which forced Marvel to overproduce and overdevelop its slate. Quote, there wasn't enough attention paid to it, says one insider. It really was a casualty of the too much era. And I found someone put up the photo where Blade was in that huge timeline when Feige did put it on SDCC. I mean, even looking at the projects that have made it, my goodness, I had forgotten how much projects had gotten delayed and shifted.
So, I mean, nearly everything between the strikes and the pandemic. With the pandemic, literally everything that got announced at SDCC 5 years ago has been delayed, and so But
No, I was saying this is interesting. All in the Game saying Delroy Lindo is now doing Coogler's vampire movie at WB. That's can't do one. Why not join the other? And outside of, I think we have no title for that. We just, from what I had heard today, all it is known as a period it is a period piece vampire story.
That project is going to come and go before Blade gets off the ground. It feels like.
Yeah. They go on to say that could explain why Blade kept on shifting storylines and time periods. The version that was aiming to shoot last year was set in the 1920s, according to sources, and featured Mia Goth as a vampire named Lilith, who wanted the blood of Blade's daughter. Goth still remains attached to star in the project. However, they are not sure if she's going to remain as his character or something else. For another iteration under Tariq, Marvel built a massive train set, but it never was used. It may be passed on to a different Disney project. The new take on Blade is said to be in present day. When they're already, again, when they were that close to shooting at one point, it doesn't surprise me that they were already building sets. But man, what a, as it next said, it is unclear how many millions they have spent on Blade, counting the development and pre-production costs. But it's not stopping now. Marvel has learned in recent years that it does not pay to be rushed into production, and the studio prides itself of having high development to production ratio. And it says Kevin Feige has been a fan of, has a soft spot for Blade, considering the Snipes 1998 movie was an eye opener for him and one of the inspirations for focusing on B-list characters in the early days of the MCU. He even remarked in 2017, a character nobody had heard of at all, had only appeared in a few issues of Tomb of Dracula or something, turned into a big franchise, and that is always a great lesson for me. Where you go, it doesn't matter how well you know the character, it is a matter of how cool the movie is. And we already talked about last week, 6 different writers now have been attached to this project, including Beau DeMayo.
Yeah, that train thing is interesting, but right now, the budget for that probably is attributed to Blade, but I gotta think if that set gets moved to another production, another movie, another TV show, that they absorb the cost of that, like they make the shifts on the balance sheet for that. Either way, if they're within 2 months of shooting, I'm not surprised they were set building. They probably have other sets they were doing as well.
And that's the thing, when we finally do see the final budget, it's probably going to be like what people are going to be like at first sticker shock. Much like we saw with what was going on with Netflix in the recent Russo brothers movie.
Oh my gosh, the $300 million? That's absurd.
I will not be surprised if this is Skyward's right now of getting up to $200 million.
Probably, but some of that's got to they have to absorb previous cost, and it's a thing every movie has. But either way, they still. This will be the movie responsible for that budget. So if it does hit 200 million, it's got to go that much higher, 6, 7, 800 million at the box office to justify it.
Yeah, that's my figure. It'll hit at least 200 million when all said and done. I should say at least.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
When you would think of what the idea of the movie is, it's just like there is no reason why. And I don't know. We talked about it last week. He's still committed to this despite his frustrations, but at what point do they say they're going to have to cut and run?
Absolutely, but you know what? At least they're doing this all now. They're not doing it 2/3 of the way into shooting. They're not doing this when they've already started and they're halfway through it, like with Daredevil, when they had to go back, and
you got to pay not necessarily a full page run rewrite, because from what we understand, they did keep some elements of the episode's film, but it was pretty darn close from what I understand.
Well, do you remember that rumor that Blade was going to be number 4 on the call sheet for a while? The one iteration. It's like, see, that kind of crap. You got to get out of there. He's a title character. He should not be anything less than number 1 on the call sheet.
And again, that, like it or hate it, again, the movies are what they are. And whatever we've got with Wesley Snipes, he put that character back on the map. Again,
absolutely.
Nobody really.
Yes.
Even in the comics these days, Blade still is not a popular character. I know they're doing a whole event right now in the comics with Bloodhunt, but for all intents and purposes, it's not it's a household name mainly due to Wesley Snipes' movies.
He showed up recently for me, which remember is 3 months behind Marvel Unlimited reading, with some Miles Morales stuff. And other than that, I hadn't seen him in a long time, a really
Yeah.
long time. So
He had a bit part in the Heroes Reborn Jason Aaron's one, which was I say nothing burgers. That was a big nothing burger of an event that went
mhm.
absolutely nowhere and was like, why?
All right, I won't rush to read that one.
No, I wouldn't. It was like, oh, we're trying to redo this, and it ended up doing nothing. So yeah, it's a lot of the stuff we've talked about in this, that, and the other, but hearing some of these things where Ollie's perception of what he wants to do, his vision for this whole thing, is a lot of it starts to make sense. But we mentioned it last week. I'll say it again. I don't remember another star in that's attached to the MCU that has done that they have developed a product in this way where the star comes and says, I
There
want to
isn't
do
one.
this.
There
Yeah,
isn't
that's
one.
so and there hasn't been one since. Why? Well, here's your case, That's
There's been like directors where they've been like, here's a couple we're looking at, maybe like see what's sparking your interest, but there hasn't been anything like this on the acting side.
yeah. Only game say Blade should ideally be stripped down to 80 to 100 million. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no reason why it should get up to this point. No, and you're right. That having 2 Oscars, yes, he does get to do that. I get that, but
Sure.
and again, I think he's an outstanding actor, and he should have some say about this, especially with it. But some reason people say, how can, and when people say like, how are they not creating a vampire movie? Well, he doesn't want it to be just a vampire movie. He wants it to be, as it says here, his Black Panther. So there, and that's a noble cause. I hope it does happen. We both here at Marvel Alliance want to see this movie come to fruition. But we did talk about last week how, with the idea of the Midnight Suns project starting to collect, moving along with it, with a new writer attached, that we're both very excited about. This could be pivoted into folding into maybe moving Blade into the Midnight Suns project if it's going to get off the ground.
Yeah, well, time will tell. We definitely want to see it. I may not be confident we will see it, but I want to see it.
Yeah. So, but all right. Well, that was our main story for tonight. So we're going to take our first ad break before we get into the rest of the news. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right. So next story up, kind of like, the Spider-Man animated show, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man's kind of gained some traction. So Daredevil related, attached to the Spider-Man show in that way. So we got Charlie Cox talking his return as our favorite horned superhero in animation and in a different costume, if we remember way back what that costume was going to be like. Charlie Cox is coming from comicbook.com, getting animated about his return. Will voice the black-suited Daredevil in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the new animated series from X-Men 97 producers at Marvel Animation. It was announced in 2022 that Cox had signed on to reprise his role, this time in animated form. The MCU-based Spider-Man prequel that was originally titled Spider-Man Freshman Year when Marvel Studios revealed the project. Cox went on to say, I went into the studio and did some voiceover work for that a long time ago, years ago, during when I was shooting She-Hulk. So I think that was around 2021. Cox recalled during an appearance at Fan Expo Boston 2024. I've just seen a couple of scenes that I voiced, and I haven't seen all the scenes yet. I just saw the early drawings of it. That's all I know. I haven't seen any of it. I have no idea what the story is, but it's but it's cool. The actor clarified it's cool that Daredevil's in it. I'm excited about it. And it's just interesting just because the actors don't get the full project. They're just getting their lines, maybe a little bit of context before and after, so they kind of have motivation for how they do the lines, but it was just like, I think that's the most caught off guard it sounded like Charlie Cox was when asked about it.
Yeah, I mean, if he did this back when he was doing She-Hulk around that time, it's been a long time since he recorded lines for this, so he may not remember the specifics too much. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. Is this the project I've been waiting for my Spider-Man Daredevil team up? No, of course not. But I'm still excited to see it. And it was rumored to come out later this year, and then that rumor was kind of walked back. Who knows what it's actually going to be? But regardless, I look forward to seeing it. I hope people give it a chance, because I know there's an awful lot of people now who are ready to dump this show because they want a Spider-Man the Animated Series revival.
I'm with those people that wanted to see that happen, but let me just see what this is. The animation style, it is interesting, is different at that point. I need kind of like what we saw with the trailers for X-Men 97. A lot of people were, I'm not so sure about this animation style. And then when we finally saw it in full action, we're all sold. We're right there. So I'm all about waiting and seeing. Interesting enough, they give a little more details about this. So this is set during Peter's freshman year of high school. The series takes place in an alternate version of the MCU before the events of Captain America Civil War. In this multiverse remix, it's Norman Osborn, not Tony Stark, of the Avengers, who mentors the 15-year-old Peter, voiced by What If's Hudson Thames. Friendly Animated Spider-Man is amazing, to say the least, said Brad Windebaum, the head of streaming television animation for Marvel Studios, in recently told comicbook.com, adding that the show is very much like a cut from the classic Stan Lee and Steve Ditko era of the comic books that ran from 62 to 66. Now, him saying that, now the animation style makes total sense. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely that is very much channeling Ditko's heart. Very much.
And hopefully that message gets out there, that people will see that.
I don't know if people would know Steve Ditko, but they'll definitely know Stan Lee, but they should definitely know him. It's Peter Parker back in high school, just trying to make it work, take care of his aunt, completely broke, and having to be a superhero, so it's essentially Spider-Man, Windebaum said. And what Jeff Trammell did, and what I think people are going to love, is he's built this ensemble of characters around Peter that you fall in love with. Similarly, just because it's long-form storytelling, as those relationships brew, when the stakes rise in that first season, things feel really tragic and dangerous and pretty incredible. So I love the show. Let's go back to what he said.
First season.
In that first season. So, basically, I think we're going to get at least one more season out of this.
I mean, they're never gonna say, unless they flat out said ahead of time it was a miniseries, which they haven't done. So they're not going to allude to, we're going to wait, we're going to see how it goes. That's the first reference I've seen to them referring to it as a first season. I don't know, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's Brad Windebaum. He's been known to drop these surprising nuggets and purposely at that point. So I'm going to take him at face value. He basically has just covertly, subtly announced that there will be at least 2 seasons of this.
I think so as well. Yep.
So, all right. Again, it's Spider-Man. We'll get it. We'll enjoy it at this point. So, following up with this, there had been some back and forth in different stories, talking about like who's actually involved voice cast wise, and a number of them, including, the comicbook.com had made reference to that. The possibility of Vincent D'Onofrio reprising his role as Kingpin. Another one basically called out and said Vincent D'Onofrio, not comicbook.com, but another story saying he had come back to reprise his role. However, that is not true according to Vincent D'Onofrio. This is also coming from comicbook.com, looking at the Kingpin rights are caught in between Marvel and Sony. So as they straight up start off the article saying Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin won't be tangling with your friendly hidden neighbor at Spider-Man. During a San Diego Comic-Con panel in 2022, Marvel Studios announced that Charlie Cox was going to be coming back. And the MCU's voice series, which is due out later this year. But when asked about it, he said at the Fan Expo in Boston 2024, I'm going to be transparently say this. You know the whole Marvel Sony thing, right? He said when he asked if he might voice Kingpin in this, he said, so there are characters, Marvel characters invented by Marvel, written by Marvel, that are caught between Marvel and Sony, and so it takes a long time for them to figure out who is doing what. As we know, he reprised his role in Hawkeye and Echo and will be rejoining in Daredevil Born Again. He said, I never really know where Kingpin can show up. My character is in that kind of situation, unlike Charlie's. So I don't know if it's part of the deal when it comes to playing Kingpin. So they go on to who owns the rights. And the answer, they say, could lie in the history as the shared villain between Spider-Man and Daredevil. Though the character has been recurring member of Spider-Man's Rose Gallery since debuting in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967, Kingpin has been Daredevil's arch nemesis ever since Frank Miller's definitive run as writer and penciler of that title in the 1980s. Kingpin was regular as Marvel Films animation, Spider-Man the Animated Series had aired on Fox Kids Network in the 1990s, and the crime lord was big bad on the Fox-made Daredevil movie, played by Michael Clark Duncan in 2003. That same year, Duncan returned to voice Kingpin in an episode of the Sony Pictures CG animated Spider-Man, the new animated series on MTV. That would be the last time Kingpin appeared in animation. So you said, Brent, you had said offline that we have all had kind of forgotten, like, why this is kind of a mess.
Well, it's just one, I'd never thought about it. And, I like to follow who, especially back in the heyday of all of them, what studio owns which character. Into the Spider-Verse is the key here. There is the Fox Daredevil movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Fox Daredevil movie. All of us kind of thought, well, when those rights lapsed and went back to Marvel, they came out with the Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio show, and well, that's it. Marvel has those rights, and then they used D'Onofrio again in Hawkeye. We see him in Hawkeye. We see him in Echo. We know he's going to be in Daredevil Born Again. We have no reason to think, and we just all seem to forget that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse existed as as Kingpin was the main villain of that first Spider-Verse movie, and in hindsight, it's like, why? Like, why was that even possible? Because Kingpin's the only character in that movie that I, watching it, would have thought Marvel owned the rights to. Now, if you had asked me back then, I would have said they had some sort of deal just to let it go because Marvel wasn't using Kingpin at the time. Mm-hmm. Just to let that happen, and it wasn't a big deal. So now, like, looking at this is a character, to my knowledge, that I don't know of another character that all three major studios had the rights to. Fox, Marvel, Sony at various times. I don't know. Super interesting. This really took me by surprise when I read this week.
Yeah, it like I said, it just kind of came about since they both were at the same Comic-Con event, and why not ask the same question? So it's one of those where, when Marvel licensed Spider-Man movie rights, and over 900 related characters to Sony Pictures in 1999, but Kingpin's one of those few who are co-owned with not an exclusive to any universe. So just like in order to use Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the Avengers or X-Men, they had to come to some sort of understanding of how that was going to work.
Like they don't use the word mutants.
Yes, we used enhanced
or the Chitauri in the Avengers movie were basically there because at the time the Skrulls were owned by Fox. Mm-hmm. In the comics, especially the Ultimates, you find out basically the Chitauri was meant to be the Skrulls. Like in the comics, they're the same race. Mm-hmm. That was true in the Ultimate comics. I don't know about the 616, but regardless, it is one of those weird ones. I just never realized or put it together that Kingpin fell into that category as one of those shared characters, because it has seemed like Marvel could use him whenever they want. And obviously we know they can use him in live action wherever they want. Like that's not a problem. So ultimately it's fine. If we can't have him in this Spider-Man TV show, if you look at all the other characters that say there's going to be in it, that's fine. There are plenty of other characters to see Spider-Man interact with. Just give it to me on the big screen and we'll call it good.
And in fairly recently, like Kingpin has split his time in the comics very equally between Daredevil and Spider-Man.
Yeah, and he was a major villain in the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. Spider-Man, Kingpin to me has always been a primarily Daredevil villain, but Spider-Man is like his number two. Like from Kingpin's perspective. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he was a Spider-Man villain first, as you just mentioned. But like today, the as is, I think of him as Daredevil first, Spider-Man second.
I would do that too. I mean, even Kingpin's been introduced into the Ultimate Spider-Man universe again.
We'll find out. I'm not there yet. But
no, you should be. No, you're there.
I'm only 2 issues have come out.
No, he owns the Bugle.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got what you're
Yeah.
saying. I got what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Right.
I made sure.
That's more of a Wilson Fisk thing, but like as the Kingpin.
Well,
but
it's one and the same to me at this point. So
it's coming. Yes, I know. I'm like, when's the next issue of that coming? I'm like, it seems like it's been a while.
nope, I made sure to be careful with what I said at that point. So, but yeah, it's rather interesting at that point. So, do not necessarily write it. So it's basically from what Vincent D'Onofrio, he is more than likely not going to be voicing Kingpin if Kingpin is in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Even, we get the quote from, the one of the main kind of co-creators basically of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man basically saying, yeah, we're going to make sure and if he was very clear saying there's going to be a lot of information coming out from scoopers who think that they know what's going on. He says, unless it's coming, when the show starts coming out or gets close, I will tweet out what's real and what's not. But he's not going to say anything right now. He just basically warned people for believing certain things are true or not true. So,
yeah.
But we shall see. So, but yeah. So that is all the news for this week. So we're going to take our final ad break before we get into listener feedback, Fact or Fictions, and the conclusion of this iteration of Comic Book Club. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud, so give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, Brent, as always, you put out the Spidey signal for listener questions. So what do we got this week?
Yeah, we had 3 come in this week. From Jim, do you feel like Insomniac's Spider-Man 2 has been a disappointment with the lack of DLC since its release? And do you think it should have been released in February, March, or April of 24 to have had a more complete game?
I want to take that last part. What does he mean by a more complete game?
I've seen some people say they thought the game was too short and it should have been longer. I don't know definitively that's what Jim is referring to, but I have seen that sentiment out there. I'll answer that with, I think the game was, I love the story of the game. I thought it was a full, complete story. So I would not have delayed it for waiting on any more of the main story. To look at his first question, do I think it's been a disappointment with the lack of DLC? Yes, I do. Because the only DLC they've had since it came out was a bunch of extra costumes. Most of which, frankly, I think are kind of ugly. And some of which were costumes from the first game. I'm
kind of offended by some of the costumes.
I just don't think they're very good. Like, it's real hard for me not to like a Spider-Man costume, because in general, I just like the overall premise. But man, the lack of story mode DLC has been disappointing at this point.
The Fifth of Jack also saying Spider-Man 2 should have DLC. Well, especially with, again, I'm not going to spoil it, and you know what I'm referring to. There's one major thing that happens in one of the side missions that leads to a major character, like you're like, oh my God, what they have in their possession now. It's just like, there's your DLC right there. And if they're not going to do DLC, because we haven't heard anything official saying they are going to do DLC outside of costume drops. We've seen supposed leaks of a timeline for what they're going to do, but that's never been officially confirmed, and they've never have said they're doing any additional single player DLC as far as I remember. Have they? Oh, you're muted.
I'm not sure why that just happened. Weird. It has certainly been alluded to, but yes, the Flame storyline, I couldn't remember the name. I'm like, the fire one, what was it? It's called the Flame. Like, those side missions, the way they ended, put it on a tee to have a DLC storyline that they could
it was like some of the best. That was one of the best side missions, not just because of Revelation, but because of the build up to it.
It was by far my favorite, and it built off of things from the first game and the DLC of the first game. Which, again, if you haven't played, I don't want to spoil for people, but the DLC in the first game, I like those stories. I thought they were fun stories, and then they were short, they were quick, that was cool, but it gave us a little bit more. that's personally all I want / need out of this. Like, just give me one more little mission, like these three little things that combine one little good playing afternoon. I just had a bunch of Funko Pops fall over,
No.
and it was Green Lantern and Nova, coincidentally enough. Yes, I think the DLC has been disappointing. They just had another update, and I saw it's getting all this press, and I'm like, it's just new costumes. Just give me more.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and I'm trying to pull up from some interesting things. Like one of the biggest things that has plagued this game is how much it costs to make and how much it actually sold. Looking at a number at the November of 2023 had sold 6.1 million units.
I don't know if that's a lot or not. I have no context for that in video games.
And again, in 11 days it hit 5 million, but I don't think let's see, Insomniac Spider-Man 2 swings past 10 million. So they swung past 10 million sold in 2024. So this is coming from IGN, fastest selling PlayStation over a 24-hour period when it sold more than 2.5 million copies in a day. Which is great, but the amount that it cost to make Spider-Man 2 development costs ran $30 million over the original $270 million budget, ultimately needed to sell 7.2 million units to break even.
Oh, well, they're well past that then at this
They're
point.
well past that, but I think at that point, it's one of those situations where they had so much to make up in the sense of getting back the production costs and the delays and everything like that. Like, people seem to forget how much it takes now to make a video game
Sure,
of this kind of caliber, especially when people complain about, oh, it's a $70 game. Remember when it used to be $60? You're lucky you're lucky it only has gone up to now $70. These games could easily be $100. And I've had this debate on different streams at this point. Where's the red line for people when it's going to cost too much? We haven't hit that yet. We're at $70 for most AAA games, but there may come to a time where it's going to creep up again because, again, it costs more than studios get out of these games. They don't make money on these games. They make money on well, I take it back. They try to make money on the games, but it's all the accessories, everything like that. They sell the hardware at a loss.
Well, at this point, if they needed to sell 7 million units and they've sold 10, they've made money on the game. And I know they're putting some of that into the DLC because I believe playable DLC is coming. They already have the character models for it. They already have the maps. They already have a lot of. It's not like they're starting from scratch.
Correct.
They're not starting from zero. So it's worth noting. But yes, ultimately, I think the DLCs have been a disappointment. I would not have held the game though.
Neither would I.
For more, I think the game. To me, the release of the game should be a full, complete story, and I think they gave us that. So, I overall that would be my ultimate answer.
And from what we understand, when we get Spider-Man 3, it's going to be a Miles focus, and it's time. It is time to get it.
I'm fine with that, and I wouldn't at all be upset if we had another smaller game in between the two, like we did the first Miles.
Yeah, and even upon reflection, like, I didn't play any of the DLC from the first game. It really didn't interest me that much. I'm not saying it was bad. It's just what it was. I've never been it wasn't enough for me to plop down the money at that point. But I really did enjoy playing the game. The idea of what should be one of the DLCs based off that side mission, how the side mission ended up. Yeah, that if it's gonna be that, yeah, that might get me to plop down about maybe $10 or so, whatever they're gonna charge to play it at that point. But I'm with you. Those costumes they've been putting out there, majority of them, in my opinion, have been terrible.
Yeah, So, all right, let's go on.
Yep.
Anthony says you get to pitch a mutant-related movie and show to Marvel for Phase 7. What are your pitches?
Mutant related? Are we basically saying it's not like
just mutant
doesn't
related.
have to be just mutant related?
Just mutant related is what he said. So could be X-Men, could be something else.
I want my Black Ops X-Force series.
Sure. Okay.
Just X-Force. And movie animated project. I want it based off of the Remender run. So.
I would like a Nightcrawler movie with basically his origin, growing up in Germany and everything he goes through. And I would want, Mystique and Destiny involved. You got to have his parents in there somewhere. So Nightcrawler would be my movie. What about a show?
A show that would have GA appeal.
High school teen drama about a teenager mutant who just goes to school there. Not one of the X-Men, just goes to school there.
I would just call it, Xavier's School for Higher Learning. Just do a show just titled something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
The goings on, and you don't have, maybe you get a mission or two out of it, but it's not every episode. Not even close. Not
a mission on purpose. Just mission by circumstance, probably. Because it's the X-Mansion. It's going to get attacked. Juggernaut's going to come barreling through or something.
You got to rebuild that sucker every 5 minutes, right?
That's right. Gotta keep those construction crews in work.
Yep. All right, what do we got next?
Last up from Omari Daniels. What MCU moment always makes you laugh, no matter how often you revisit it? For me, it's Trevor and Shang-Chi talking about the Planet of the Apes.
For me, it has been and continues to be Get Help. I love Get Help. My wife and I will bring it up every so often, and it continues making me laugh. I don't care. I unapologetically enjoy Thor Ragnarok. I like serious Thor. I also like funny Thor. Love and Thunder, yeah, we doubled down a little too much on that one. That's where we went a little bit overtime. But Ragnarok, I have no apologies for liking that movie. And Get Help is my favorite scene from that movie.
You mentioned Love and Thunder, and I started chuckling at some of the jokes in that movie. But my real answer, the first one, is also Thor related, coincidentally enough.
Okay.
I can think of two, but the first one I really thought of is a scene I've mentioned before in Thor: The Dark World, when they recruit Loki to help them get off of Asgard, and they're just walking, and Loki is basically mocking Thor, and he turns into Chris Evans as Captain America.
Yep, that's a good
Gets
one.
me every time. Every time cracks me up.
The cameo we never thought we needed, and
had no clue it was going to happen. It just absolutely broke me the first time I saw it, and I've loved it ever since. The other Thor related scene I thought of was when he goes into like the pet store and just shouts he needs a horse. I need a horse.
Well, interesting enough, my other one would be tangentially Thor related, in this case Loki, at that point where Loki facing down Hulk and just yelling at him, he grabs him and just boom 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 boom, puny god. Just because at that point I was just like, yeah, shut him up, please. We've come a long way, Mr. Loki and I.
We have. Pepper walking in on Tony Stark changing out of his Iron Man suit says, "This is not the worst thing you've walked in on me doing." That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There's so many moments that even though I know they're coming, I still laugh at them. But that Loki as Captain America moment for me, and I just knew you would say Get Help.
I knew you knew at that point. So,
but it's a great scene. It's a great scene.
Yeah, you said
it is one of the funniest scenes in that movie for sure.
Mm-hmm. Besides, it's my birthday,
That's funny, but I like the Get Help scene even more. Fifth of Jack, America's Ass scene gets me, or the classic On Your Left, or Cap Williams. On Your Left is okay.
Now
is
you have
funny,
to go into that. How funny is that to you, there, Brett?
It's funny, but it's not funny because of the show. It's not funny because of the movie. It's funny because of the charity trivia contest we were doing, and I asked the question, "What was the very first line spoken in a Russo's Marvel movie?" The answer is On Your Left, and the individual in question did not get the question right. And so now every time I see an On Your Left meme, I send it to him. And I've sent him recently private TikToks. He's like, "I swear I thought that was going to be an On Your Left." I'm like, "No, it was Arrow related."
All the games got one too, saying Okoye's, why was she up there all this time when Wanda comes down to join them in battle? Yep.
Why was she up there all this time? Yes. So good. So good.
Again, there are a lot. I mean, we're going to stop the stream and say, oh, we could have mentioned that. I mean, people knock the MCU for the sometimes what they call low-hanging fruit. You know what? Guess what? You can hate it. I enjoy it, just like I enjoy DC movies, and I enjoy how they do their different kind of brand of humor. They call it organic. That's fine. I I can like them all and I cannot like them all. So, nope. You're still.
I do not know why that keeps happening, but my
I
son
know.
told me this week we need to watch Shazam again because it's been a long time since we've seen it. Like, okay, we can find time to watch it.
There we go. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Omari, for your questions this week. That was a lot of fun. And all right, so fact or fiction. So let me pull up the 5 from last week. All right, number 1. The Midnight Suns project will have a team where half the roster has already been introduced in a prior MCU project. 67% said fact, 33% said fiction. Number 2, Sony will debut their live-action theatrical Spider-Man within the next 5 years. 56% said fact, 44% said fiction. Number 3, we will not see the MCU's version of the Green Goblin and Venom until Spider-Man 4. Here we go. 100% say that is not happening. 4, this is from Anthony. Somehow, by the end of Venom, The Last Dance, Venom will have the iconic Spider-Man logo. 89% said not happening. False.
I hope not.
God, we hope not.
They don't deserve it.
No, they haven't earned it or deserve it. And the final one from Anthony, Logan Wolverine will not be on the initial team of the first MCU movie. 50-50 split. We're not sure. So, all right, Brent, your turn this week. What you got for us?
First up, Norrin Rad will also become a Silver Surfer in the MCU. Basically, I'm saying we're going to have more than one. I know a lot of people are like, oh, no, it's not Norrin Rad. And I'm saying I think we're going to end up with 2. I think he's going to appear regardless.
Yeah.
But I think we will see him, maybe not at the first movie, but I think we'll see him as a Silver Surfer in the MCU.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm a fact on that. That's not too big of a stretch where I was like, but they're doing one. No, we can have, our newest anointed Silver Surfer make reference to her husband, lover, whatever they're gonna call them at that point, of being a previous Silver Surfer, and kind of see a look at what he was. So I'm down.
All right, next up, we will see a Fox X-Men actor in Deadpool and Wolverine, but it might just be archival footage.
So someone that
Cyclops could show up. James Marsden could show up as Cyclops.
but in a flashback.
I'm saying it might just be archival. Like, I don't necessarily think they will have filmed something new, but I could see them using archival footage.
In a third act flashback.
Sure.
Sorry, I just wanted to use that line from the trailer. Sure. Yeah, I could kind of see that. That would fit. That would fit the movie. So yeah, fact. How about you?
Yeah, I'm a fact. I think they'll use it somewhere. And finally, I told you earlier today I was trying to think of a third one, and I did think of a third one. I was thinking about what's going to happen in the short term with me being gone. I've alluded to it already this evening. Substantial Spider-Man 4 news will drop while I am gone over the next 3 weeks.
Take the low-hanging fruit, why don't you?
Hey, I thought of it earlier today. I don't know.
Yeah, that's okay. Fair enough. Sure, why not?
I'm saying a fact, but I think it'll leak, but it'll leak from the reliable sources. Because I think it'll come out before San Diego.
But we don't know. You're not. You're just saying some quote unquote substantial.
Something that we'll know it when we see it. Something we'll think that's substantial.
Gotcha. Something we will know when we see it. So
telling me that Tom Holland signed for it isn't substantial, by the way.
Right. There you go. So, all right. There you go. I will post those as as usual on Sunday afternoon, so let your voices be heard. And our guests will be coming in the next couple of weeks. We'll doing Fact or Fictions, because that's their crutch they have to bear, is coming up with Fact or Fictions. David has to do it possibly for 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, I'm gonna let you guys worry about that.
Yeah, that's a David problem. That's not a me problem. I'm sure as he's a good listener, he is already coming up with stuff, or has, like you, a backlog of ideas.
He probably does.
So, All right, so let us. I know we had said originally, and this is. I'm sorry for listeners that do follow along with our comic book club that we said we were going to be just doing issue 4, but with Brent leaving, we didn't want to hold it off for 3 weeks at that point. So we did an audible, and we'll be doing issues 4 and 5, concluding our exploration of Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. So, looking at issue 4. I will have to say, this is my favorite issue. More so just due to the action sequences that took place.
It was a good one. I like the Deadpool Ultron combo.
Mm-hmm. Especially where it's ripping off the helmet and doing more damage to him than necessary.
That was a good scene for sure. He's not really worried about it. He'll heal up in a couple minutes.
Yeah, he'll heal up at that point. But I do appreciate. I think it was more tragic, and how they did it with killing the Power Pack in Miss Marvel and Devil Dinosaur.
Gosh, that was harsh.
It was one of those that's just like, ooh, yeah. I'm surprised they even did it. I mean, one, I didn't think it was necessary. If I have to be, did I really need to see this go down? Did I ever? Oh, they didn't take down the Power Pack and Miss Marvel. There are heroes out there. No, I've never been a fan of the Power Pack. I know. Travis Hines is a big fan of the Power Pack. He talks about it quite often. He always likes putting it out there about Power Pack.
Yeah.
But that was one that they did it they quote unquote did it tastefully, but it wasn't necessary, but it was one of those that kind of showed how far he had gone down this brainwashing path.
For sure. And then I was surprised to see Gwenpool still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought the villains would have killed her.
Yeah, it's one of those where, I don't know. She ended up kind of doing the breakthrough moment on him, so.
Yeah, I did have to kind of laugh at the Deadpool putting Daredevil on the stand in a courtroom. That did get a chuckle out of me.
That was also on brand as well.
And then as he's actually killing him, calling him a hostile witness. But the thing about saying whenever you punch a ninja, do you actually say talk to the hand? I legit laughed out loud at that. I was not expecting that.
That's what, at least I appreciated the gimmick they were doing in understanding like what he was experiencing at this moment where these were not working. What he was going through.
Yeah, and he goes all fast and furious, racing for pink slips with Ghost Rider. Pretty good there.
Yeah, but yeah, Gwenpool. I had to go back and reread it just understanding what the trigger was. That wasn't like really clear necessarily. So, but all right. So that is that issue, and I tell you what, I do like the next week how they did that cover. Not like the actual cover, but the next week like preview cover. That was pretty good.
Sure.
So what did you think about the conclusion? Actually, no, it ended up being that ended up being the actual cover. Never mind. What did you think about this one, the final issue?
Well, that cover says "Smile, You're Dead," and the first thing I noticed was, oh, that was in the trailer, the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, the "Smile, You're Dead" bullet or gun or whatever. Which I guess I presume this is where that came from. I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't read this story before. I liked him taking on Carnage. Even that one, I'm like, man, he got some of these. I'm like, how did Deadpool manage to swing this? Carnage was one that made me question it, but a very gruesome finish. And well, it's Carnage, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean it is what it is at that point. But he had already faced down Venom, so he kind of had an idea of how to take him down. So.
There was a character I couldn't tell who he was going after. He took out the leader, he took out Mysterio, and then the final panel of that page, I wasn't sure who that was supposed to be. Somebody that he's burning their head with.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Which page is that?
Page 8 in Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, you're right. That one I'm not sure about. Everyone else we could determine.
Yeah,
who
everyone
was-
else you could tell who it is, but that one I stared at it for a while. I'm like, I'm not figuring it out, and I moved on. And the next page was, well, Kingpin, he's gone. Bullseye and Batroc the Leaper versus Deadpool. That was a fun fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting, especially how he's trying to play them against each other. You know, you're just going to betray each other, right?
Yes.
But how he took down Bullseye, yeah, I'm never gonna. I'm always gonna be like, how bad can we take him down?
Yeah, that's fine there. I like how he took down Green Goblin. The look on Goblin's face as he got decapitated, it got a chuckle out of me.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, what did you think about that interaction with Magneto? That whole scene.
Magneto could have also probably destroyed him at this point. He's surrounded by metal, it looks like. Just impale him over and over again and punt him off to space or something. Probably could have done it, but Magneto just feels so defeated over everything that's happened. I get why he didn't do it. And I like that Deadpool let him live. Like, that was his way of killing him was, nope,
Yeah.
you have to live with all this.
Just like I have to live with it, too. So, what did you think about the final fight?
It was fine. It wrapped up really quickly.
I felt it was
And
very anticlimactic. It did
I'm
not.
like-
I thought it was going to be a little bit better.
It's like, it feels like there should have been another issue. I'm like, that's it. That's the end of the story. Okay. And like, they're like, you don't even know if you're awake right now. Well, we know that Deadpool was awake right now and actually killed the Red Skull because of the way they were changing the art whenever he was in his own mind. But it just felt, yeah, anticlimactic. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
It just was like, oh, that's it. It's over. I feel like there should be a 6th issue, but I guess there's not. I like the first series better than this one.
I would agree with that. This one, I was very about it, and that's what I was kind of worried about. But I'm glad I did read it. I appreciated the gimmick, how they were doing it, but it was, yeah, it just wasn't good. It's interesting. We've read now 2, Old Man Logan and this that have basically ended with the Red Skull in so many ways getting decapitated.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. A Nazi deserves to be at that point. I'm surprised he didn't just crush the skull as it was talking to him, or fake talking to him, however you want to look at it.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, so this was good. It's one of those rare occasions where we both have not read the storyline. So, but yeah, like we said, we're going to be taking a break from Comic Book Club until after Deadpool and Wolverine. This time, this upcoming one will be the listeners on Twitter that'll get to choose which one we do. We don't know what the theme's going to be, and therefore don't know the issues. So, but we've got some time to think about it. So
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We will. And so, yeah, so that is volume 219 in the books. So, Brent, tell people how they can follow you.
Brentech Prime on the socials. Pick your social network. That's my handle on it.
Yep, and same thing with me. You can follow me in all the socials at Chris Balg. You can follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. As always, want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. For all your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs, use that code MARVEL, GUA, at checkout to get $2 off every single order. We also, you can follow our Twitter handle on at Marvel A Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions. All DMs are open. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us live in the chat. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. Safe travels, Brent. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right. So, yep, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, talked about last week, yep, I do my annual trip to Heroes Con in Charlotte. So,
How was it?
Last year, it was great. It was one of those where, on Friday, always my objective is to knock out as many of the big time creators first, because Friday is usually your low attended day because it's during the week. Saturday's where everyone comes out because it's the weekend. So I had, as I was telling my friends, even to Aaron's, like after going since they came back from pandemic, I've gotten to know how the con. I mean, I went to the con before pandemic, but I kind of found out and started learning how they operate, how to do this, and this is probably the most I have ever been prepared going into this con in the sense of what my attack of plan was. The least amount of books I had planned on getting signed at that point. But my objective, my number one objective, I alluded to how my objective last time was getting Rick Leonardi to do a sketch, and that ended not so well, we'll put it. An interesting bait and switch that he decided to pull on me. But that didn't end up happening. So my objective this time was my new favorite writer. It's been the last couple of years, artist, currently now just the writer, but restarted as writer and artist of the new Transformers series for the Energon universe at Skybound, Daniel Warren Johnson. So I'm gonna, for those of you that posted this on Twitter, but I'm gonna pull it up here for those of you watching, for those of you listening. You just got to let me describe. So, yep, objective achieved. So I I got in 30 minutes early because I paid a little extra for that, and went straight to Daniel Warren Johnson's table because he does 4x6 sketches, only so many a day at the con. So I had to line up and get my ticket for that. But not only is first, when I got there signing my Wonder Woman Dead Earth black label, that he does free sketches inside the hardcover books just as a thank you. And
which is incredible because that's almost unheard of.
That is. There are very few that do that now, and he just does it. I mean, the amount of popularity that Daniel Warren Johnson has garnered, even right before he was named writer and artist for the initial couple of arcs of the Transformers series, like he has skyrocketed to some of the best out there, and just the amazing sketch he did for Wonder Woman. But when coming back for my 4x6, at that point there was only one choice. I wanted Optimus Prime, and he, just watching him sketch it out at that point, and I had to tell him how he saved my con last year. He was very touched by that, and that is my Optimus Prime sketch running out the Autobots rollout. So
yes.
So if you have not read Transformers, the new relaunch under Skybound, it is great. I can also highly recommend the mini series that are going on at Skybound, building to a G.I. Joe proper series. They have done Duke, they have done Cobra Commander. Now those mini series are wrapped up. Now they're on to Destro and Scarlet. So check those out. Those are highly, highly recommended. But going down, I got to meet Dan Jurgens. And I got him to sign not only my omnibus for the Death and Return Superman, but also he signed my very first comic I ever bought, Superman number 82, the holofoil Superman Back for Good.
Always love that cover.
Yep, that is my original issue. That is as mint as you can ever get at. I've treated that like gold even as a child when I picked it up with my allowance money, and telling him that story. Dan Jurgens is one of the nicest people you could ever meet. He was so kind, really was touched by the story. I told him, I blame you for getting me into this. And he kind of laughed. He said, well, how's it working out for you? He said, it is outstandingly working out well. Moving on, got to meet Greg Rucka, and if you're a DC fan, Greg Rucka, Batman, Infinite Crisis, Gotham Central, 52, on top of his independent work with Lazarus, The Old Guard. I brought up probably 3 Omnis, the Lazarus Deluxe Editions, and he was just like, you need an award just for carrying that. I said, sir, you are one of my favorite writers of all time. And he wrote little quotes and every single thing that relates to it. But got to tell him that Gotham Central is by far one of the best things I've ever seen him write. So it was a cool moment for that.
Very nice.
Then meeting Charles Soule. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know who Charles Soule is. A lot of the writers of the High Republic stuff, but we know him as a Daredevil writer, Darth Vader writer, a lot of independents. But Daredevil, that is what a lot of the stuff when we're hearing is Born Again is going to be taking. And he actually told me that he had been to the set, and he said it was a very cool moment to see some of his creations come to life. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to one of those for sure.
yeah. Got to meet Larry Hama, legend in his own right. G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, has been there since day one on Real American Hero, continuing that journey. He had an illustrious run on Wolverine. Really nice guy. Greg Ha, amazing artist, but if you have not read Wonder Woman Historia, his art in the book he was responsible for, one of the they call them books in Black Label, gave me a surprise, nice sketch of Wonder Woman there. That was cool. I mean, I got a lot of surprise sketches. Next up, Scotty Young. I'd met Scotty Young for the first time last year. I bought a poster. I love his art. Some people call it kiddie. I just love his art style, but he did a whole Spider-Verse poster that's hanging right over there. I love looking at it at that point. But the Omnibus Oz, where he did the whole series of all the Oz books in his art style, that had been long out of print. I found an amazing deal for it in mint condition on eBay last year, and I said, if he comes back, I'm getting him to sign that book. And that was a cool moment because I've read it to my kids a number of times, so it was a cool moment at that point. Brian Stelfreeze, he was the first artist on Ta-Nehisi Coates' run on Black Panther, and I presented him with the omnibus, which he was quite surprised for. He acted like he had never seen that omnibus before, and I was just looking for a signature for him. He proceeded, and if you're watching this live or on my Twitter, he did a whole page sketch of an amazing Black Panther.
Oh yeah, that's incredible.
That I was just like, oh my God. He was just like, why are you in shock? He's like, what's wrong? He said, I was just looking for a signature, sir. You did that and then some. He says, well, this is just to thank you for purchasing this.
I think that's my favorite piece you've shown for sure. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is. So, local indie writer, Josh Greathouse. I've promoted him on this show a couple of times, but he's independently produced his own indie book called Bang, the Ballad of the Tiger. He's got 2 books out there about the series, but he produced this is a print, but he actually put up the actual original sketch of Big Barda, painting of Big Barda for the art auction to benefit Parkinson's research that they do every year at the show. So that was really cool. Jim Shooter, we should all know Jim Shooter for being the writer for Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars series. Now, what he's holding there is my issue of. It's the original issue of number 8. I did not have him sign that because he was charging $20 for a signature. So I had him just sign the omnibus. I was not going to be paying $40 for both, but I wanted him to hold the issue at that point because that issue I've had for a couple of years. It was not in great condition. I'm not looking to sell it, but I just wanted the man to hold it. And my last meetup, I was kind of surprised when I saw him attending, but Mark Guggenheim, co-creator of this, what series there, Brent?
17 different ones, but I'm going to go ahead and say Arrow, Flash,
yes, Arrow, and
Supergirl, the whole Arrowverse.
He is a comic book writer too. I can highly, highly, highly recommend X-Men Days of Future Past Doomsday. If you have not read that series, it is basically a prequel of what led up to that two-issue famous story by Chris Claremont. But what he does in that, the story he weaves, man, there are some. I mean, we know a lot of people died at that point, but how it came about, I said bravo. But I got him to sign my copy, my first season and the final season of Arrow at that point, because in my opinion, those are really those are my 2 all-time favorite seasons.
I mean, Arrow, the Arrowverse, you know the love I have for the Arrowverse.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that is incredible. That's I would love to meet him someday and just say thank you for the thousands of hours of entertainment.
And I did. He was very touched by it. He was even like selling like some of the scripts from the first pilots of all the stuff, and he was telling me kind of he's got a couple of television shows that he's currently involved in, that one of them is going to be going to Netflix. They've been it's a superhero universe, but it's of his creation. It's not based on any current IP. It is his own created property, and he is working with God, what's his name escaping Berlanti on another project.
Yeah.
So very enjoyable, and I got pretty much everything done on Friday. So I didn't end up going back the rest of the weekend because it was one of those like I got all the rest of the people I wanted to meet. It wasn't like I have to. It was like it would have been nice, but I've met them before. And so I saved money and I came under budget with what I'd spent. So it was a successful con.
Can't beat that, Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. So, but we will see you all next week. At least I will see you. Brent will see you all in 4 weeks.
In a few weeks, yeah.
In a few weeks. So safe travels, Brent. We will see you soon and talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.